Hello everyone, my name is Dorian and welcome to Belgium. We are at Spa with the Mercedes AMG GT3 and I'm just going to show you guys the lap real quick and then we're going to go over it corner by corner. If you enjoy it, leave a like, and if you want to see more track guides, race videos, and live streams pretty soon, then subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments what you think as well. I'm sorry I didn't have a lot of time to practice it this week because I'm about to pack everything up because we're going to move in a day. So it wasn't my fastest lap ever. It was, I think, decent enough so you guys can pick something from it. Hope you guys enjoy it. See you on the track. Okay, so we're coming up to turn number 1. Let's look for a braking point. It's going to be right at the end of this patch of dirt. We also have the 100, but this is much easier to look at. This part right here. And we're going to start braking right at it. Peaking at around 90%. Staying on for a little bit. We are going downhill just a tad. And releasing it nice and gradually to around 50%. Try not to burn up the front tires. That's why 50% is sort of the sweet spot for me to stay around in. And right before this patch of dirt is when we're going to start to turn in. Downshifting all the way into first gear at this point. So we're already at first gear when we start to turn in the car. And I'm going to aim quite early for this apex. We are turning in a little bit later. So we can aim for this apex quite early and go back to the throttle very rapidly. So you have this huge straight coming up, and after that Eau Rouge, and after that another huge straight. So this corner can really determine how much speed you're going to carry throughout the next 20 seconds or 25 seconds or so. So trail braking all the way into the curb, getting as close to this wall as possible. And in order for us not to hit this wall, we're already going back to the power. So we're sort of aiming towards the wall and letting the throttle just carry us away from it. Around 50%. Letting the car land. As I open up the wheels, squeezing it all the way to 100%. We are in first gear. You don't want to be too violent. And then upshifting into second gear. Letting the car go all the way to the outside. And we're through. Now, into Eau Rouge. Well, quite tricky. But if you get the initial part right, if you get the left-hander here right, you can actually take it flat out. So we want to start to turn in very early. Staying flat, 6th gear, or 5th, I think. Yeah, I'm staying 5th for a long time here. And I'm gonna smash this curb and quite like barely have my right tires on the tarmac here. I'll show you the line from the outside where the car is sitting. So yeah, pretty much all the car on the curb. Yeah, pretty much the left to the all the car is left to the white line here. And that's because I just want to open up this following corner as much as humanly possible. Staying in 5th gear because I want to carry as much RPM up the hill as possible. And the car is very stable in high RPM, so that's also a good reason. Clipping this curb as late as I can because I open up the corner. And I'm going to upshift into 6 right around here. That's going to put the less rolling resistance in the car, will allow us to carry more straight line speed right as we come out of Radion. So as we come here, I'm going to clip this curb nicely and just let the car track wide here. Don't be too eager to correct it. Let it track wide a little bit because the rear end is going to dance a little bit a lot of the times. This is as much as you want to cut it without getting off track. Keep that in mind. And you're through. Not a huge straight. Probably one of the best or more popular overtaking opportunities on this track. Just you got to make some compromises on the first corner, so we're going to go over it. We have the 100 and the white line. We're going to brake slightly before it. Let's call it the 105, 110 maybe. Right around here, I would call it the 110, yeah. Peaking pretty high. And you can see what I'm doing here with the braking is a bit different. I'm squeezing the brake pedal. This is all to mitigate front tire temps. Squeezing the brake pedal instead of slamming it. And I just want to try to manage the front tire temps as much as possible. And slowly, gradually releasing it all the way into 3rd gear. Start to turn in quite early. And I'm making a pretty big compromise here on my first corner. Because I want to make sure that I get the line right for the left and the right-handers coming up. Because they're the most important ones. So you want to take this corner quite slowly. It's not the fastest you can take this corner by a long way. I'm just trying to hit the curbs, hit the apexes, and make sure the car's nice and stable. We started by braking, by squeezing the brake pedal, making sure we got plenty of front tire temps, and not overspeeding into this corner. So we have a nice line for the left-hander. So you can see I'm starting to squeeze the throttle right as I mount the curb. So trail braking, and as I start dismounting the curb, squeezing the throttle 50, 60, 70%, letting the car rotate, and then I'm going to lift again, rotate the car some more, just hugging the curbs as much as I can, be neutral on the curb itself, and as I dismount, back to around 50, 60%, all the way back to 100 in fact. We're going to let the car, we don't want to let the car track too wide here. You want to stay in the middle, because you have to turn left and just grab as much of the road on the left here as possible. You can see I'm squeezing all the way to 100%, and then starting to release it as I turn in the car. Again, this is the most important part. This is why we've taken all those compromises. We want to have a wide approach here, a wide arc, flip the curb, and go back as early as we can on the throttle. As you can see, I got a lot of throttle at this point, and I'm going to squeeze it all the way to 100% as I dismount the curb. Using all of the track on the way out and a little bit of the AstroTurf as well. You can use just a little bit of this stuff. Not too much though. It will be an off track, that is. Excuse me. Now, breaking point here is, I would say between this end of the end of this patch of dirt and the beginning of this curb. That's sort of our breaking point. So right around here. Peaking around 80% and staying on it for a long time because you're going downhill. It's going to be hard to slow the car down. Only now am I moving into trail braking in 2nd gear. Now, there's a few methods to take this corner. Some people like to stay wide on entry and grab it as a late apex. Some people like to take it as a double apex where they clip the first part, let the car run wide, and then rotate it again to a double apex. I like to just hug it the whole way through. I think for the tires, for consistency, it's probably the best way to go about it. I just trail brake for a very, very, very long time. You can see that here, and we have the middle point of the corner, which is signified by this orange marker. And right before that, am I going to go back to the power? You can see I'm just squeezing it, staying on around 50, 60, 70% for a very long time. I'm not trying to accelerate too harshly here because I don't want to track too wide. Remember, we have to go back to the right as soon as possible. Just squeezing it nicely. And only now am I back at 100%. Let the car go wide here, but not too wide. I don't like to use too much of this curb. If you do, the front right is going to bounce a little bit. So when you come to turn in, when it comes the time to turn in the car, it just won't respond. There'll be a bit of a delay because there won't be any grip. It'll bounce. So I don't like to mount it too much. You do have to because you want to open up this corner. There's no real breaking point here. So I can say that right before, if you know the previous corner kind of determines when I'm going to track wide here. The exit is going to determine when I'm going to track wide here and mount this curb, and that's when I'm going to start braking. But no real breaking point. That's why it's very difficult to be consistent in this corner. Just don't use too much of the curb. Trail brake gently. Peak at around 30%. Then we're going to trail brake for a long time. Take the car all the way to the inside here. Don't mount this power too much. Very easy to get an off track, and actually very easy to get a time penalty as well. You can see pretty early back on the power, but very gradual as well. So squeezing it to 70, waiting a little bit, and then all the way to 100%. Just making a compromise so I can have a good exit here because we're going to be at full throttle for a very long time. Obviously, there's a very nasty off track here, so I'm just being extra cautious. Yeah. This is one of the hardest parts, especially for a GT3. It doesn't have too much downforce. You're going downhill. You're a bit off camber. In terms of a braking point, the best I could find is this orange part of the fence. So we're going to brake, I would say, I don't know, 15, 20 meters before it, right around here. It's really wise to brake early and softly here instead of trying to brake late and harshly. Very easy to spin the car around. Also, if you look at this curb, it kind of dips. There's that little dip past the white line. And if you put your rear tires on it and start braking, the car will just snap a lot of the times, like 8 times out of 10. So what I'm doing, I'm tracking as wide as possible without touching it. Let's look at the chase view. I've just got the car on the white line here. I don't know, a couple of inches to the right, and I would be on this dip. And as soon as I hit the brakes, I would just lose the rear end. Sometimes you can catch it, sometimes you can't. But very hard to take advantage of it and actually try to make the car go faster. So it's way more consistent to just put the car on the white line here. And again, I'm not peaking very high, around 50%, then releasing it towards the apex. And I'm trail braking for a very long time, just trying to put some weight in the fronts because we're going downhill. 4th gear. And as soon as I go back to the power, it's going to be quite gradual, so I would stay at around 50%, making sure the car doesn't understeer too much. It will want to watch out pretty much always here on the exit. But as soon as I know I'm not going to abuse the track limits too much, just putting the right tires on the curb, so I'm going to go back to the 100% and just stay committed from this point on. Going to wait for the RPM to increase and then upshift into 5th. Take the corner as a double apex, so we got 2 corners, 2 apexes, and just let the car track wide again. You don't need to use all of the track here. There's barely any resistance at this point. Now, braking point here is right at this orange marker, or right before it actually, or this this pillar of this bridge. Don't use the shadow; it could move, but actually the shadow here is actually a very good reference. So right around this point, and peaking very high. It's really vital that you make a big compromise on this right-hander, so you can have a good exit on the one following up. So we're going to peak at around 80%. You can see I'm staying on the brakes for a long time, just slowing the car down. Maybe a tad too much, but it's worth it. Trail braking into the curb. You can see I'm going a bit neutral here, dabbing the brakes again, going neutral again, and then slowly, very gradual, squeezing the throttle while I'm making sure to stay on the inside the whole way through. Don't let the car track wide here. So you can see you have the curb on the outside. I'm still on the inside. I'm still close to it as I finish the corner. Still at 50%, just making a big compromise here. Letting the car, as you can see, the corner is way more open now, so I can turn in a bit later. That's really going to help me on the exit. Staying on around 50%. As I start to rotate the car, I'm going to lift, let the car rotate, making sure I'm clipping the inside of the curb, and squeezing the throttle the whole way through. Now, I was maybe a bit too eager here to go back to 100% since I had to lift again. But, you know, it's very hard to avoid modulation here because this is a very long corner. There's 2 corners are very long, so it's very hard to avoid modulation and just be 100%. You're gonna have to try to figure that one out. Now, the braking point here is right at this transition between the red and white barrier. Tire wall. Gonna start braking at around 50-60%. Really, really important to keep the front tires in check here because you're gonna ask for a lot, both on the first and second right-hander coming up. So you can see I'm not peaking very high. I'm actually braking quite early. Wiser move would be to abuse this curb on the outside a little bit more, open up this corner. We'll take less from the front tires. I didn't use as much as I wanted, but still, you can see I clipped it. You can just use a little bit more. Trail braking all the way into the curb. Staying on this curb. This curb is your friend. It's going to rotate you. So that's the reason you can go back to the throttle pretty early. You can see I'm just squeezing, being extra gentle, 40, 50, 60, 70%, then all the way back to 100. Let the car go to the outside. This is pretty much as you want to use it. All in third gear. Now I'm squeezing third gear and I'm going to start to turn in flat out. Upshifting into fourth. And you really want to try to mitigate the understeer here. So the upshift into fourth obviously helps. And the lift to around 60%. Staying on it, squeezing it back gently all the way to 100%. And I got barely any understeer here on the exit. Using the curb on the way out. Taking the car to the right. Just taking short routes here. Nothing special. Now, for this lift, you don't want to brake here, you just want to lift. We have this patch of dirt. It's always here. You can count on it. So around 15 meters, maybe 20, 25 meters past that, because we're going very fast. Hard to judge how much, how much distance we're traveling, but right around here is when I'm going to lift. And I'm going to lift as much as I need to get the car to turn to the inside. So it depends on the track conditions. It's never going to be the same. It's very hard to lift the same amount every time here, especially if you're drafting. You might have to lift altogether. So I'm going to lift to around 30% just to track the car into the inside. As soon as you do, be patient. Don't slam it because it does shut in on you on the exit. Wait for you to finish most of the corner before you start squeezing back to 100% again. And definitely try to use all of the track without getting off track. That's really going to help you. So right around here is pretty good. Now, final chicane. And this one's quite tricky for me. Maybe because this car is a bit of a boat. Kind of hard to change direction in low-speed corners. Yeah, the patch of dirt is my braking point. So you can see right here. You can probably brake a little later than that. I wasn't that brave. 90% peak, staying on it for a while. Only gonna start release it very, very, very late. I'm just trying to slow the car down as much as possible. All the way into first gear. As I put it in first, you can see I'm releasing towards 50, and then start the trail brake, and I'm turning quite late. You don't want to touch this sausage. You want to turn in late here because you want to make sure the car is nice and straight and on the right side of the track before you turn in for the next corner. So you can see this corner is quite open now, and I miscalculated a little bit because I hit the brakes, and when this corner is this open, you don't really need to. You can just lift and the car will rotate nicely. So I screwed up too much speed, and what that did is just cause me to hit the sausage curb on the left-hander here. And because I hit it, I lost about a tenth and a half on the exit. That's how important it was. You can see the car's bouncing. Couldn't get the power down, couldn't go flat out as early as I wanted to. Lost me a ton of time. I was kind of unhappy with that. But other than that, pretty decent lap. Again, not a huge time to practice here because I'm moving house. That will give us a 218.767. I hope you guys enjoyed this track guide. If you did, leave a like. If you want to see more track guides and race videos, and soon, live streams, then subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.